Forget the stories you think you know. Forget the simple tales etched in stone and steel. When you picture the Viking Age, what do you see? Bearded men with horned helmets, a myth by the way, leaping from longships, axes raised in a brutal symphony of conquest. You see men forging empires, men discovering new worlds, men writing sagas in blood. It's a powerful image. It's also only half the story. Because in the shadows of the Longhouse, in the flickering firelight where destinies were debated, and even on the blood-soaked battlefield itself, there was another power. A force so integral to the Viking world that, without it, the longships would have never left the shore. This is the story of the women they tried to erase. The shieldmaidens, the seeresses, the shadow queens. The true architects of the Viking Age. To understand their power, you must first look not at a sword, but at a set of keys. In Norse society, the woman of the household was the undisputed ruler of the domestic sphere. When her husband was away raiding or trading, which was often for months or even years, she wasn't just keeping the home fires burning. She was the acting CEO of a sprawling agricultural enterprise. She held the keys to the food stores, the treasure chests, the very survival of her clan. She managed the finances, directed the farmhands, negotiated with traders, and upheld the law of the land. A Viking woman could own property. She could inherit wealth. She would simply call witnesses, declare herself divorced, and walk away with her dowry and her freedom. This wasn't just a woman in a house. This was a manager, a matriarch, a pillar of society whose authority was absolute within her domain. But the power of Viking women extended far beyond the walls of the Longhouse. It reached into the very fabric of fate itself. They called her the Vulva, the seeress. She was a figure of immense power and dread, a woman who walked between the worlds. Dressed in animal skins and carrying an iron staff adorned with charms, the Vulva was a wanderer who practiced the art of Seder, the Viking form of magic. She could see the future, commune with the gods, and weave spells that could decide the outcome of a battle or the fate of a king. When a Vulva entered a village, even the most powerful Jarl would offer her his high seat, humbling himself before her power. She wasn't a queen, but she could unmake kings with a single prophecy. She was a living conduit to the supernatural, her words carrying the weight of destiny. To ignore her was to invite disaster. Her power wasn't political, it was elemental, primal, and it was a power wielded almost exclusively by women. Of course, there is the legend that echoes loudest through the halls of history, the one that inspires both awe and academic debate. The Shield Maiden. For centuries, historians dismissed them as poetic fantasy, the stuff of sagas meant to entertain. Women fighting alongside men? Preposterous. But the earth, it seems, keeps its secrets patiently. In the 1870s, archaeologists in Birka, Sweden, excavated a spectacular Viking warrior grave. Inside was a high-ranking warrior, buried with a full arsenal: a sword, an axe, a spear, arrows, and 2 shields. The warrior was also buried with 2 horses and a full gaming set, indicating a strategic mind, a leader in battle. For over a century, this grave was held up as the quintessential example of a powerful male Viking chieftain. Then came DNA analysis. In 2017, scientists tested the bones. The results sent shockwaves through the historical community. The ultimate Viking warrior, the strategic commander buried with honors, was a woman. She was not a myth. She was not a fantasy. She was real. Suddenly, the sagas of Lagertha, the fierce shield maiden who fought alongside the legendary Ragnar Lothbrok, didn't seem so far-fetched. They weren't just stories. They were memories. Echoes of a reality where women could choose the shield and the sword over the needle and the loom. But perhaps the most terrifying and undeniable example of a Viking woman's power is not a legend, nor an anonymous skeleton. It is a story written in fire and blood. The story of Olga of Kiev. In the 10th century, Olga was married to Igor, the ruler of the Kievan Rus. When a rival tribe betrayed and brutally murdered her husband, they assumed his young widow would be a simple prize. They sent their best men to her city, proposing she marry their prince, effectively surrendering her kingdom and her son's birthright. Olga greeted the emissaries with a chilling smile. She told them she was honored by the proposal. She commanded her people to carry the ambassadors in their boat, a great honor. But instead of carrying them to her palace, they carried them to a deep trench that had been dug overnight. Olga watched, her face like stone, as the men in their boat were buried alive. Before news of their fate could escape, Olga sent a message back to the tribe. She accepted the proposal, but requested that their most distinguished men be sent to escort her, to prove their worth. Intoxicated by their apparent success, the tribe sent a party of their best chieftains. Olga welcomed them and invited them to refresh themselves in a bathhouse. Once they were inside, her soldiers bolted the doors and burned the building to the ground. Her vengeance was still not complete. She then traveled to the rival tribe's capital, announcing she wished to hold a funeral feast for her late husband. As the tribe mourned and drank heavily, Olga's soldiers waited for her signal. When the tribe was drunk and defenseless, she gave the order. Her army fell upon them, slaughtering 5,000 men in a single night. Her final act was one of psychological genius. She laid siege to their last city. After months, she offered them a deal of stunning mercy. She would forgive them if every house gave her just 3 pigeons and 3 sparrows. Relieved, the city complied. That night, Olga ordered her soldiers to tie a piece of sulfur-laced cloth to each bird's leg, light it, and release them. The birds flew home to their nests in the eaves and thatched roofs of the city. Within moments, the entire city was an inferno. Those who fled the flames were cut down by her army. This was not the act of a grieving widow. This was the cold, calculated strategy of a Viking queen, a master tactician, a woman who wielded power with a ruthlessness that would make any Viking jarl tremble. From the mistress of the Longhouse to the seeress who commanded the gods, from the shield maiden on the battlefield to the queen who burned cities for vengeance, the women of the Viking Age were not passive observers. They were active participants, weavers of fate and wielders of incredible power. They are the missing half of the saga. Their stories, once whispered in the shadows, are finally being brought into the light.